The whole boxing world thought that Canelo Alvarez was going to fight Jaime Munguia on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Then Canelo changed his mind and he stated that he was going to fight JERMELL CHARLO on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Then after he fights and defeats CHARLO, he was going to fight finally David Benavidez on Mexican Independence Day weekend. But as we all heard the shocking news, according to Mexican ESPN Boxing, it looks like now he is going to be facing Terence Crawford on Mexican Independence Day weekend. Now this is very shocking to me because this will be his third fight with the PBC. And as we all know, he had a 3-fight deal with the PBC. So this does not leave any room to fight David Benavidez. And this is what we are going to be talking about next. But before we get into that, if you guys are not subscribed, please punch and knock out that subscription button. That way you'll never see it again. And ding that notification bell. That way you never miss any of my new boxing videos. Alright guys, let's get to the round. Ding, ding. Okay champs, let's get started. As we all know, boxing is the theater of the unknown and everything changes constantly. And sometimes it's hard to keep up with what boxers say. And at one point, Canelo Alvarez has stated that he will not fight Mexicans from Mexico because he represents Mexico. Now I find that very odd because he is actually doing the opposite of what Mexican warriors do. Mexican fighters have a reputation to always slug it out. Have you ever heard of the phrase, he fights like a Mexican? I'm talking about fighters like Eddie Morales, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Marco Antonio Barreras, and Juan Manuel Marquez. That's just to name a few, but it seems like Canelo does not want to do that. So because of those statements, he recently contradicted himself. Because we all know that Jaime Munguia stated that Canelo Alvarez was the one that wanted to make the fight with Jaime Munguia. It was not the other way around. Munguia did not contact Canelo, and they were supposed to have the Mexican showdown on Cinco de Mayo weekend. So we were all expecting a Mexican war and slugfest between Jaime Munguia and Canelo Alvarez. And the whole boxing world was very excited because it was going to be on Cinco de Mayo weekend. And I believe it already had a good build-up because Jaime Munguia came over a great victory over John Ryder. He actually knocked out John Ryder. That's something Canelo could not do. As we all seen John Ryder go the distance with Canelo Alvarez. So I believe the build-up to the fight was there and it would have sold a lot of pay-per-view numbers. But then Canelo Alvarez had a change of plans and decided to fight JERMELL CHARLO instead of Jaime Munguia. JERMELL CHARLO is the twin brother of JERMELL CHARLO, the guy that Canelo already beat convincingly. In all the 12 rounds, I did not give JERMELL CHARLO one round, but I do give him props and respect. He moved up 2 weight classes to challenge the undisputed champion at 168. But JERMELL CHARLO was the undisputed champion at 154, so they labeled this fight Undisputed versus Undisputed. Gotta give him this though, that was the best looking face-off I have ever seen in my whole life. Like Tupac said, so many belts in one effing place at the same effing time. So now he is fighting the twin brother JERMELL CHARLO, but this CHARLO is considered to be the bigger CHARLO as he fights at 160, but he did take over 2 years off. He was going through some mental issues. Until this day, I don't think he's still right. At the Jose Benavidez weigh-in, it looked like he barely woke up. Somebody probably woke him up and said, "You're not going to the weigh-in?" He goes, "That's today?" He didn't even comb his hair or brush his teeth, he just went. Also stated that the Jose Benavidez was his tune-up, but they fought at a catch weight of 163, but he could not even make 163 as well. He came in at 165 and actually had to reweigh himself. And when he came back to reweigh himself, he was at 167. That is only 1 pound from fighting at 168. It's time to move up, I guess. So JERMELL CHARLO and Canelo Alvarez are in the same weight class because he cannot make 163, 160, or 165. And I believe he made history because that was the first time ever that somebody actually came in to weigh more at the re-weighing. Jose Benavidez already had concerns about him coming in over the weight limit of the catch weight, and Jose Benavidez actually moved up in weight to challenge him at 163. So I know the weight will not be a problem for Charlo. He obviously cannot make 160 anymore. Shoot, he can't even make 165 anymore. But that's neither here or there. But after he defeats Charlo, the whole boxing world was under the impression that he will finally fight David Benavidez. This fight was supposed to take place on Mexican Independence Day weekend, and we were all excited because that is the biggest fight in boxing, right next to Tank Davis versus Devin Haney. Also, Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk and Dimitri Bivol versus Beterbiev are not too far away. But now, according to ESPN Spanish Boxing, they stated that it will not be David Benavidez on Mexican Independence Day weekend. It is now going to be Terence "Bud" Crawford, which I really do not like at all, because we all know Terence Crawford is a great fighter and he did beat Errol Spence from pillar to post, but that was at 147. And in most cases, skills do pay the bills, but Canelo is very skilled as well. And I believe if Crawford puts on those 21 pounds to fight Canelo, Crawford is not going to be the same fighter. I believe Crawford will not have the same reflexes and he will be slower, as he will have to choose where to add those 21 pounds from, muscle or fat or both. I expect to see Terence Crawford looking like a bodybuilder that's kind of fat. I just think Canelo Alvarez is just too good for Terence Crawford to jump up 3 weight classes and try to match him. You seen how timid JERMELL Charlo was against Canelo, and he fought like that because he did not want to get knocked out. I don't believe he was able to take Canelo's punches, and if he would have traded with Canelo, he would have definitely gotten knocked out. I see the same thing with Crawford. As soon as Crawford takes one punch from Canelo, he's gonna fight exactly like Charlo did. The best bet for Crawford is to use his skills to fight from the outside. I believe if he does try to trade with Canelo, Canelo will end his career and knock him out. And if for some miracle Crawford does make it to the last round and he survives, he will never be the same fighter again. If I was Terence Crawford, I would not take that fight. I think his best bet is to move up to 154 and challenge Tim Tszyu and JERMELL Charlo. Those are fights I'm sure he can win. But who knows, maybe he just wants to retire after Canelo and get that bag. I mean, I'm gonna buy the fight anyways. If it does happen, I'm buying the fight. And maybe he just doesn't plan on fighting after Canelo, but then he's gonna sell his health for the bag. And what do you guys think about Crawford versus Canelo? Do you guys think Crawford has a chance against Canelo? And do you guys think Canelo is ducking David Benavidez? Comment below and I'll write to everyone back. And if you guys like the show, like the video, share the video, subscribe, and that's it for me, champs. I gotta roll.